I did an audit. I commissioned an independent audit of all of our jail facilities to ensure that we don't have a repeat. We've changed policies. We've changed supervision. We've enhanced all of that to, again, ensure that we don't have a repeat of a horrendous act like that. And that means taxpayer dollars are saved. You know, even for the public that says, you know, gee, these are prisoners, you know, I really don't care how they're housed. It costs money when we get sued, and it comes out of the taxpayer's pocket. So it's my job, I view, as the sheriff to reduce our liability, reduce the taxpayer burden as much as possible.
Well, and prevent potential federal oversight. I know that the federal prisons, we have a significant budget issue because the federal government is now running the health care inside of the federal prisons.
At the state level, yeah, and the state...
it's costing an unbelievable amount of money.
Well, it is, and then typically when you get the courts involved, then, you know, you have other problems to deal with.
Yeah, so I like the proactive approach. That's why I bring that up, because I would much rather see an independent local civilian board helping the department figure out how to do it itself rather than having Big Brother come in and tell us how to do it.
And I couldn't agree more. Local control is always better. We do it more effectively when we can do it at the local level.
So as a, I say this as a card-carrying member of the NRA, a civil libertarian, and a physical conservative, I really had a hard time finding critics of you, which I found to be quite surprising, considering there was a lot of people who were really ardent supporters of the former sheriff, regardless of his legal challenges and his conviction. There's been some criticism of your policy on the CCW program here in Orange County, and I'd like for you to have the opportunity to speak to the facts about how you've changed the program and why.
Right. Well, you know, if you recall, when I came into office, there had been a number of news reports about who was receiving CCWs and why. You know, a concealed weapon permit, for the public that may not know, it's a misdemeanor to carry a concealed weapon, you know, on your person, you know, under your coat, in a purse. And an exception to that is that the sheriff or any police chief can issue a permit if you have good cause. And so when I came in, because of both the news reports and the concerns that campaign contributors were being given concealed weapons permit without respect to following the law, the intent of the law, and staff who had been issuing those at the behest of the former sheriff, who said they were concerned about the way they were being issued. I asked staff to review only on the good cause criteria. Does it have a good cause criteria? And they did that. And the reality is very few were revoked, very few. To put it in perspective, Brad Gates had about 300 concealed weapons permits when he was sheriff. Mike Corona had about 1,100. I have about 850. And so the number, I just provide that, you know, to put it in context, but the number to me does not matter. Does it meet the criteria of what the intent of the law is? It's simple as that.
Right.
And as sheriff, you have to be willing to make some decisions and be able to take the heat with people that are not happy with a given law. But the reality is, as sheriff, it's not your job to find a way around the law to appease a special interest group. It's your job to follow the law, and we have a system in this country for changing laws we don't like.
In fact, I was quite frustrated when I heard early on about this change of program and that these permits were being revoked. But then in looking at your point about justification, this is a state law, not a county rule, not a sheriff's department rule. And so as somebody who has done lobbying and changed laws myself, I feel like for those people who really feel like we should change this more towards a shall issue program, your issue really is with the state of California,
right,
not with the local department. So that's one of the reasons why I'm a little more relaxed about it than I was.
Yeah. Well, and yeah, there are shall issue states, and California is not a shall issue state. It's a may issue state. And it gets wrapped up in the Second Amendment argument, and it's not about the Second. I support the Second Amendment. I've been on record supporting the Second Amendment. But this is about a state law. And I'm a constitutional officer, and I'm required to enforce state laws.
Right.
And it's as simple as that. And so I will continue to do that while respecting people's rights. And if there's a reason for someone, if they're at greater risk than somebody else in the population, and there's a number of reasons that would justify good cause, then absolutely we'll issue a concealed weapon permit.
So with that said, you've been now sheriff for 2 years.
Yes.
You are I guess, hopefully going to be the next sheriff for.
I hope so.
To be elected. What in the last 2 years do you feel that you've done the most right?
I have provided leadership to this department, ethical leadership. I have been, from my view, the sheriff's job is to focus on keeping the community safe and working with the community and taking direction from the community on what their priorities are. And so I've spent a lot of time out in all areas of this county. I have met with all of our contract partners. I have looked for ways to save the taxpayer dollar. And so my focus is not outside of the county in terms of my job. My job is to focus here and provide the best service we can for the community and provide the leadership to the department. And so that we have deputy sheriffs and other employees out there who are doing the right thing, making the right decisions, not violating people's constitutional rights, providing fair and equitable law enforcement to everyone.
Now, you folks here at the department, and you in particular as Sheriff's Corner, I mean, you have pretty broad responsibility, but it even extends further. Can you give the viewers a little bit of a concept of how broad the responsibility of the Sheriff's Department is? I mean,
Right. Well, besides providing contract law enforcement for 12 cities, the courts, security at the courts, at the airport, security there. Unincorporated, all the unincorporated communities, we're responsible for policing. The Harbor Patrol, the emergency preparedness and planning. If we have a natural disaster or a terrorist attack, the sheriffs are responsible for coordinating mutual aid resources to deal with those issues. And so, and I have a background in Homeland Security. 4 years, my last 4 years with LA County Sheriffs, I was in charge of Homeland Security. And so I have a very keen appreciation for the risk that we still face, that there are people out there that want to do us harm. And local law enforcement needs to be a major player in that. As we've seen with the incidents, local law enforcement comes across this first. And so I'm committed to continuing to work with our state and federal partners on preventing attacks. And so that's
budget
that's
cuts going to put that at risk at all? Do you feel like, you know, there's a point where you just have to say something's got to give? I mean,
Right.
There's a lot of money being cut from budget. I think it's what, you're up to 30% of budget now?
Right.
It's going to be even deeper?
Yes, and again, I look at the department as a whole and prioritize, you know, our most essential services. And Homeland Security, I'm not willing to compromise on that. We cannot afford to take our eye off the ball. We're at risk here in Orange County, no different than any other county. And so we will continue to work very hard and commit the resources to work with the FBI side by side on the Joint Terrorism Task Force, to continue to monitor events around the world to see the applicability or the possibility of us having an event here in Orange County. It's just too important.
Well, complacency, of course, would be an invitation.
Exactly.
So if the folks that are looking for those targets find that we don't believe, because we live behind the orange curtain, as some people call it, we're somehow safe from all of these things. So
Right.
I appreciate that perspective, because it is something that concerns me. We have a very diverse community. It's very hard to identify who's who and what's what. We have the harbors. We've got Long Beach port just above Orange County. We've got a lot going on here. So with the contract city work that you do, I'm not sure whether you're aware, but I've been involved in the prevention of human trafficking and rescue of
Right.
particularly teen and young people that are victims of sexual abuse and so on and so forth. Orange County has been in denial, I think, about it.